Very good morning, students. Myself, Vijay Lakshmi, working as assistant professor in ISL Engineering College. In the previous session, we have seen the important questions, that is short answer questions for the internal examination. And those are also very, very important questions and repeated questions in the external examinations, previous exams. So today I'm going to explain you the important questions for the second mid examination. So some of the LAQs. So today I'm going to explain you one of the common question and remaining important questions for the second mid examination. So the first question is explain the preparation, properties and applications of Bakelite. So this is the question from unit 3. It is also repeated question. This Bakelite question asked in the recent paper also, but this is asked with a short answer question. But every time this is expected for the long answer question. So let us see how to prepare the Bakelite. So Bakelite is one of the polymer which is synthesizing by the condensational polymerization. So how we are going to synthesize the Bakelite? By using condensational polymerization. So what is condensational polymerization? It is synthesizing by condensational polymerization. You know what is meant by the condensational polymerization? Condensational polymerization is nothing but the polymer in which there is a loss of groups or molecules taking place. So here the Bakelite is synthesizing by using two monomer units. One of the monomer is phenol and another monomer is So one of the monomer is phenol and another monomer is the formaldehyde. So the first monomer is phenol and the second monomer is the formaldehyde. So these two monomers are undergo condensational polymerization to synthesize Bakelite. Bakelite synthesis is taking place in 3 steps. So it taking place in the 3 steps or 3 stages. The first stage is preparation of orthomethylal and the paramethylal. In the second step, formation of the novolac. And in the third step, we are going to synthesize the Bakelite. So these are the 3 steps or 3 stages in the preparation of the Bakelite. So let us see the first step. The initial reaction of phenol formaldehyde in the presence of acid or alkali produces monoclide trimethylal depending on the phenol formaldehyde ratio. But here we are getting only two products here. One is orthomethylal paramethylal. So let us see that reaction. This is phenol. Phenol is nothing but if the benzene is connecting to this is benzene. If the benzene is connecting to OH group, that is called phenol. And phenol is reacting with formaldehyde. This is formaldehyde in the presence of acid or base catalyst. So here we are taking acid as a catalyst. Acid is nothing but the solution which contains H plus ion. So this formaldehyde is reacting with H plus to produce the cation. That cation is the methylol cation. So what is the name of the cation? The name of the cation is the methylol cation. So this is methylol. CH2OH is methylol. CH3 is methyl. CH2OH is a methylol. Cation means which contains the positive charge. So when these two are reacting with each other, we are getting the methylol cation. This methylol cation is attacking at ortho and the para position of the phenol. So producing the two compounds, one is orthomethylal phenol and another one is the paramethylal phenol. So the methylol is attacking at ortho position and also attacking at the para position. So we are getting the two products. What are the two products here? One is orthomethylal phenol and another one paramethylal phenol. This is phenol structure. We know the phenol structure. This is ortho position. So methylol group is attacking at the ortho position. This is the first compound. This is called as the orthomethylal phenol because the methylol is at the ortho position. Plus paramethylal phenol is also producing here. This is phenol. We know the phenol structure. This is the para position. So methylol is attacking at the para position. CH2 OH. So this is the first step. What is the first step? Phenol and formaldehyde are reacting with acid or the base catalyst to produce orthomethylal phenol and the paramethylal phenol. Now let us see the second step. Second stage is the orthomethylal phenol and paramethylal phenols are heated to produce two type of straight chain resins by condensation of methylol group with hydrogen atom of benzene ring or another methylol group. But here in this, I'm explaining only one compound formation or one product formation. When orthomethylal phenol and paramethylal phenol, these two are reacting with each other, that is producing novolac and along with that tresol also forming, but we are showing only the formation of the novolac. So to produce novolac, 2:1 ratio of ortho and paramethylal phenols are reacting. So 2:1 ratio of ortho and paramethylal phenol. That means 2 moles of ortho and 1 mole of paramethylal phenol are reacting with each other to produce novolac. So let us see the 2 moles of orthomethylal phenol. You know the methylal phenol, that is orthomethylal phenol structure. This is orthomethylal phenol. So 2 moles. I'm writing another mole of para orthomethylal phenol here. So what is ortho position? Ortho position is nothing but adjacent position to the functional group. That means this is ortho and this is also ortho. So now I'm writing another mole of methylol at the left side of the benzene, just for representing or just for showing the loss of water molecules. So now we have taken 2 moles of orthomethylal phenol and 1 mole of paramethylal phenol. Let us take 1 mole of paramethylal phenol here. This is phenol. What is the para position? Parallel position or the opposite position of the functional group is the para. So this is paramethylal phenol. So now 2:1 ratio of ortho and paramethylal phenols are undergo condensational reaction. So what is meant by the condensation? Condensation is nothing but loss of water molecule. So for representing water molecule removal, I'm mentioning the hydrogens here. Hydrogens are present, but we are not showing the hydrogens generally. But here I'm showing the hydrogen to represent the loss of water molecule. Methylol OH, benzene hydrogen are eliminating in the form of water molecule. Benzene hydrogen, methylol OH is eliminating in the form of water molecule. So when there is a loss of water molecule, we will get a no bond between CH2 and this benzene. And we will get a new bond between the benzene and the CH2. So let us show the structure of novolac. OH, it is as it is. Now, is there CH2OH in the polymer chain? No, there is no CH2OH. There is only CH2. And this CH2 is making a new bond with CH2 is making a new bond with this benzene. So, new bond with benzene. OH. Now, this benzene is forming the new bond with the CH2. Now, the benzene OH. So, this is Novolac. So, this is the second step, formation of Novolac. Novolac is the second step. Now, let us see the last step. The last step is formation of bakelite. How the bakelite is forming? Bakelite is forming due to reaction of Novolac in the presence of hexamethylene tetraamine. So this is the formation of Novolac. See here. First I explained this. Yes. Phenol and formaldehyde, these two are reacting with each other to produce orthomethylalphenol, paramethylalphenol. Now here ortho and paramethylalphenol, these two are undergo condensational reaction to produce Novolac. And this Novolac on again condensational polymerization producing bakelite. Yes. So this is the formation of bakelite. Now let us see the next question, which is common question in the internal examination. That is ultimate analysis of coal. What is ultimate analysis? But before that, what is the use of analysis? Analysis is using to find out the quality of the coal sample. Yes. So why we are analyzing the coal sample? To know whether the quality of the coal is good or bad. Ultimate analysis purpose is identifying the percentages of elements in the coal sample. What are the percentages of each and every element in the coal sample? If you know the percentages of these elements, we can find out whether the quality is good or bad. Based on the characteristics of coal, we can find out whether the quality is good or bad by using ultimate analysis. This is the elemental analysis. Why we are calling elemental analysis? Because by using ultimate analysis, we are going to find out the percentages of elements. So it is called elemental analysis and often called as qualitative analysis of coal. This analysis involves the determination of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, and oxygen. So what are the elements we are going to find out by using ultimate analysis? We are going to find out percentage of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, and the oxygen. Let us see the first step, determination of carbon and hydrogen. So first directly I will explain, afterwards I will read out this. For determining carbon and hydrogen, initially we are taking the coal sample in the combustion chamber. Already I explained this. Again I'm explaining. Just let us assume this is the chamber. In this chamber we are taking 1 gram of coal sample. This coal sample is having all the elements. What are the elements? It has carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and nitrogen. Yes, so these are all the elements present in the coal sample. So we are placing 1 gram of coal sample in the combustion chamber. So when we are placing the coal sample in the combustion chamber, carbon and hydrogen, these are having more combustion capacity than the remaining elements. So carbon undergo combustion to produce carbon dioxide and hydrogen undergo combustion to produce water molecule. Yes. So carbon reacting with oxygen. What is meant by combustion? Combustion is nothing but reaction with oxygen, burning with oxygen. So carbon converts to carbon dioxide, hydrogen converts to water vapor. So what is our aim now? If we know the quantity of carbon dioxide and water vapor, we can find out the percentage of carbon and the hydrogen. So we need to know the quantity, how much amount of carbon dioxide and water is released here. So to know the quantity of these two, what we are doing? We are sending these two in the two different bulbs. The first bulb is filling with potassium hydroxide and the second bulb is filling with a water vapor. Sorry, the second bulb is filling with a calcium chloride. So the first bulb is filling with potassium hydroxide and the second bulb is filling with a calcium chloride. So the nature of potassium hydroxide is it is absorbing the carbon dioxide and the nature of calcium chloride is it is absorbing the water vapor. Previously, the potassium hydroxide and calcium chloride, the bulb's weight was less, but after absorbing by carbon dioxide and water, the weight of these two bulbs are increasing. That means if the bulb's weight are increasing means it is absorbed by carbon dioxide. So by increase in the weight of this, we can find out percentage of carbon. And by increase in the weight of this, we can find out percentage of hydrogen. Yes. So this is determination of carbon and hydrogen. So a noun weight of finely powdered coal is taken in a combustion chamber and burnt in the steam of pure oxygen. The carbon and hydrogen present in the sample are converted into carbon dioxide and H2O. Here I have not written H2O, but here carbon dioxide and H2O, these two are releasing here. H2O, which are passed through the two bulbs. One bulb containing weighed amount of anhydrous calcium chloride, which absorbs water. And another bulb is containing KOH, which absorbs carbon dioxide. Yes. So one of the bulb is filling with calcium chloride. This calcium chloride is absorbing the water. But another bulb was filling with potassium hydroxide, which is absorbing the carbon dioxide. So the weight of calcium chloride and potassium hydroxide in the bulbs are then determined. The increase in the weight of calcium chloride and potassium hydroxide bulbs represents the weight of H2O and CO2 formed respectively. So now here we are finding percentage of carbon and percentage of hydrogen by increasing in the weight of the two bulbs. So increase in the weight of KOH bulb divided by weight of coal sample taken into 12 divided by 44 into 100. So here into 100. So here we must have the divided also. Yes, so percentage of carbon is equals to increase in the weight of KOH bulb divided by weight of coal sample taken into 12 by 44 into 100. So how you got 12 here? Because are we getting carbon quantity directly? No, we are not getting the carbon quantity directly. From carbon dioxide, we are going to find out the carbon amount. Yes, so from carbon dioxide, we are going to find out the carbon. So what is carbon atomic weight? Atomic weight is 12. What is carbon dioxide molecular weight? Carbon dioxide molecular weight is 44. So 12 by 44 came from carbon and the carbon dioxide. Yes. So that is the formula of percentage of carbon. Now let us see how to find out percentage of hydrogen. What is the formula we are using to find out percentage of hydrogen? But before that, see here, where 12 represents atomic weight of carbon, where 44 represents the molecular weight of carbon dioxide. So now let us see what is the significance of carbon. What is the use of carbon in the coal sample? The calorific value of any fuel depending on the percentage of carbon. Hence, higher is the percentage of carbon, higher is the calorific value, in terms better is the quality of coal. So simply, if carbon is more, calorific value also will be more. If calorific value is more, that is the better the quality of the coal sample. That is about the significance of carbon. Now let us see the formula of percentage of hydrogen. But how we are going to find out the percentage of hydrogen? By increase in the weight of calcium chloride bulb. What calcium chloride bulb has absorbed? Calcium chloride has absorbed the water molecule. Yes. So from water, we are going to find out the percentage of hydrogen. So what we have to do? Hydrogen atomic weight divided by water molecular weight. So percentage of hydrogen is equals to increase in the weight of calcium chloride bulb divided by weight of coal sample taken into 2 by 18 into 100. Now let us see what is 2 and what is 18 and what is the significance of hydrogen. Where 2 represents the atomic weight of hydrogen and 18 represents the molecular weight of water. Significance of hydrogen is combustible, but it is usually present in the combination with water, oxygen as water. So always hydrogen is available in the combined state with the oxygen. That means it is existing in the water form, but which on being heated changes into steam. So lesser is the percentage of hydrogen, better is the quality of coal. So that means if the hydrogen is present, the moisture quantity will be increased. But the presence of moisture is not acceptable in the good quality of coal sample. So lesser the hydrogen percent, better the quality of the coal sample. Next, determination of nitrogen. Nitrogen in coal is determined by the Zeldal method. So how we are going to find out the percentage of nitrogen? We are finding in the Zeldal method. Zeldal flask is one of the long neck flask. This is one of the flask. This is the long neck flask. In this, initially we are taking 1 gram of the coal sample. Taking 1 gram of the coal sample, and it is heated with potassium sulfate, copper sulfate, and the sulfuric acid. Yes, how we are treating? We are treating with the sulfuric acid, potassium sulfate, and the copper sulfate. Yes, sulfuric acid is acting as a solvent, but potassium sulfate, copper sulfate, these two are reacting as a catalyst. What is the use of catalyst? Which are increasing the speed of the reaction. Yes, so for speed of the reaction, we are using the catalyst. So nitrogen in the coal sample will be reacting with the sulfuric acid to produce ammonium sulfate. That means it is producing ammonium sulfate, NH4 taken twice, SO4. So we are getting ammonium sulfate. When we are getting ammonium sulfate? By treating of 1 gram of coal sample with sulfuric acid, potassium sulfate, and the copper sulfate. After the solution becomes clear, that is when whole nitrogen is converted to ammonium sulfate, it is then distilled into a 1000 ml round bottom flask. After forming the ammonium sulfate, what we are doing? We are passing or we are sending the entire ammonium sulfate in the round bottom flask. And this ammonium sulfate is treated with the sodium hydroxide to liberate ammonium. That means the ammonium sulfate, whatever liberated here, that is treating with the sodium hydroxide. When it is treating with the sodium hydroxide, the entire ammonium sulfate, that means entire nitrogen, will be converted to the ammonia. Now this liberated ammonia is collected, distilled into a known amount of the standard acid. So whatever the ammonia is liberated here, it is distilled into the known amount of the standard acid. Now the volume of unused acid is then determined by titrating against standard sodium hydroxide. So whatever the unused part is there, that unused part is titrating with the sodium hydroxide solution. Now by using used part, we are removing the unused part by titrating with the sodium hydroxide. Now by using used acid, we are going to find out the percentage of nitrogen. So this is the formula percentage of nitrogen. Percentage of nitrogen is equals to volume of acid used into concentration of acid divided by weight of coal sample taken into 14/1000 into 100. Next, significance. Presence of nitrogen does not affect the utility of coal to a great extent, since it is present in very little amount and it is an inert gas too. Yes, so presence of nitrogen is not affected much in the coal sample. As nitrogen does not help in combustion, so a good variety of coal should not have higher amount of nitrogen, because there is no use of nitrogen presence in the coal sample. So lesser the nitrogen, the better the quality of coal sample, because unnecessary heat will be required for the burning of nitrogen, but it is not releasing any calorific value because nitrogen calorific value is 0. And the last one, determination of sulfur. A known weight of coal is burnt completely in a bomb calorimeter. So where coal is burning, the coal is burning in the bomb calorimeter in the presence of oxygen, wherein the sulfur present in the coal is oxidized to sulfates. So whatever the sulfur present in the coal sample, that sulfur is converts to sulfate in the bomb calorimeter. Now this sulfate is treating with the barium chloride. Whatever the sulfate is releasing here, that sulfate is reacting with the barium chloride, treating with the barium chloride. So that sulfate is reacting with barium chloride to convert to barium sulfate. So if we know the quantity of barium sulfate, we can find out sulfur. In SO4 we have S, so we can find out sulfur by knowing the weight of barium sulfate. But how the barium sulfate is formed? Barium sulfate is formed as the precipitate. How the precipitate is? The precipitate is high density paste-like form which is settled down at the bottom of the container. So this precipitate is filtered, washed and dried to get a constant weight. Yes. So after getting constant weight, by using barium sulfate powder weight, they can find out percentage of sulfur. This is the formula of percentage of sulfur, weight of barium sulfate divided by weight of coal sample taken into 32 by 233 into 100. So what is 32? Sulfur atomic weight is 32. Barium sulfate molecular weight is 232. Why we are using barium sulfate also? Because sulfur is finding from barium sulfate. So 32 by 233 into 100. Significance of sulfur. Sulfur present in coal adds to its calorific value as the oxidation of sulfur is an exothermic process. Yes, this process is the exothermic process. So the calorific value will be increasing. But here sulfur dioxide produced is harmful as it gets oxidized to SO3, which forms sulfuric acid leading to corrosion. So even the presence of sulfur also not acceptable because it is releasing sulfuric acid. And the last one, determination of oxygen. It is determined indirectly by deducting the combined percentage of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur from 100. So from 100, we are subtracting all these to find out percentage of oxygen. So there is no any experimental method to find out percentage of oxygen. Simply by using mathematical expression, that means by subtracting carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur in 100, we can find out percentage of oxygen. So percentage of oxygen is equals to 100 minus percentage of carbon plus percentage of hydrogen plus percentage of nitrogen plus percentage of sulfur. So the last one, the significance of oxygen. Oxygen content in high rank coal is very less. High oxygen content coals are characterized by high inherent moisture and low calorific value. That means even presence of oxygen also reducing the calorific value. An increase in 1% oxygen content decreases the calorific value by 1.7%. So if oxygen percent is around 1%, it is reducing 1.7%. So if the oxygen percentage is increasing, the calorific value is gradually decreasing. So thus a good quality of coal should have low percentage of oxygen. Yes, so with this, I'm going to conclude this session. Remaining we will see in the next class.